Good evening and welcome into this week's episode of Stuck in the Sin Bin. I'm your host, Luke Owens, and I'm joined alongside Mike McCormick and Matt Watling. As always, guys, let's jump right into this week's power rankings. And coming in at number 5, once again this week, is the San Jose Sharks. And guys, they're 8-2 in their last 10 games. They're also very good at home, 23-5-5, which is going to bode very well for them going into the Pacific Division on top. So obviously those home playoff games could be key for them. Brent Burns is having a great season, their leading scorer, 73 points, and of course, Pavelski leading the way with 37 goals. So this Sharks team, a little bit underrated, our only Western Conference team featured here, but I think they could make that run. And at number 4, we have another repeat offender. It's the Carolina Hurricanes.
Yeah, I'm not going to make that same bunch of jerks joke as we've made probably the last 3 or 4 weeks, but that just goes to show how good they are. They've been on the power rankings for so much. We have to find some kind of pun to go along with it. And they really had a dominant performance against Nashville, 5-3 win on Saturday. And then you look at Peter Mrazek, their starting goaltender. His goals against average of 2.0 in his last 3 games is really impressive from a guy that was betting on himself to start the season.
Right, and at number 3, it's the Boston Bruins.
Yeah, Torrey Krug is out with an upper body injury, so we'll see how they progress with or regress with him out of the lineup. They have been playing great lately. I think it's because Brad Marchand is officially on Twitter, so there's been a lot of tweets back and forth, and he apparently loves Mitch Marner. So
he does. And at number 2, we have a new team added to our list that's used to being at the top. It's the Washington Capitals. And guys, another team that's 8-2 in their last 10, and they've been piping hot lately. And Ovechkin, I mean, what more can we say about him? Leading the league with 46 goals, also 78 points. And I think they really have the ingredients to repeat if they want to do it. But I think Holtby's going to be the key for them. He's had an up and down year. And if he can get hot come playoff time, we could see them in the Stanley Cup Finals once again.
And you also got to look at a guy like Backstrom. You know, he's still going, and Ovechkin definitely wants to win another cup.
Oh, yeah.
Drink the sweet nectar from Lord's Stanley Cup, get another ring.
Ovechkin's motivation is back, which I think has been huge. And surprise, surprise, it's the Tampa Bay Lightning once again at number 1.
Yeah, I mean, do I have anything else to say? I was trying to find notes to write before. They're the first team to clinch a playoff spot, and they might hit 60 wins this season. So
yeah,
that's what we can look forward to.
It's ridiculous.
They're so good.
It's not fair.
It's scary. It's scary how much talent they have, and it's all because they've got that no income tax in Florida.
Exactly.
Get those stars for cheaper.
They're sitting pretty in Tampa Bay, but now we shift to a team that is nowhere near being featured on our power rankings, the New Jersey Devils. Guys, what exactly went wrong after what seemed like a positive step forward last season?
Taylor Hall's injury, probably. So let's put that number 1.
And not only that, you look at them last year, and there was a lot of false hope in the sense that they were built on a lot of things that were bound to regress.
Right.
Hot goaltending from Keith Kincaid. He didn't have a great year this year, and he's also not on the team. They traded him because of Mackenzie Blackwood's emergence. You look at Taylor Hall, he was the only guy scoring. I think there was something like 40 points difference. And you look at the play here, and they just don't play well defensively. No one really in front of their own net. They're all caught puck watching. And second, third chance opportunities, you're not going to be saving these pucks if you're a goaltender on either end of it. It's just really tough.
Yeah, and we're talking about a game against Calgary where they let up 9 goals. And even, I mean, Blackwood, of course, obviously you don't want to let up 9 goals in a game, but at the same time, when he's a rookie, you need to put some defense in front of him. And the Devils haven't given anything, and obviously the injuries have been huge for them. But like you said, Matt, we were kind of expecting that regression to take place.
Yeah, I honestly think that the Devils just played way over their head last season because there's always that one team every year, and we saw with Vegas last year, and there's always that one team that just makes the playoffs and just plays. I think we're kind of rally around each other. So I think the Devils were just that last season, and I think with Taylor Hall's injury, we just truly saw what kind of a team they were without him. And
I mean, you can't win with just 2 guys.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And I know I'm dating myself, but back in 2013-14, we're talking about it before the show, Colorado Avalanche, they won the Central. The next year, they were one of the worst teams in hockey.
Right.
This is what the Devils remind me of. And the big issue is they didn't take that next step. They didn't see what they had around Taylor Hall and build around him. Who was their biggest ad in free agency last offseason? There really wasn't anyone.
Exactly.
A lot of second, third pairing guys, middle six defense or forwards, and when you don't add anything, you don't add that scoring punch. This is what you're going to see.
Yeah, especially in the NHL where you see so much turnover from year to year. If you're sitting around that kind of mediocre spot where they were, and we knew they were going to get bounced out of the first round of the playoffs, but the fact they made it in the first place, you think you'd want to add the pieces around and not just leave a guy like Taylor Hall out to dry. And now you have a free agency period coming up where you're going to have some guys leaving, and it doesn't seem like the Devils have been willing to spend. So they're kind of stuck in mediocrity, it seems like.
Yeah. And I think, sorry to interrupt you, Mike, but I think for the most part, when you look at this team, they're 1 or 2 pieces away. You get a top pairing defenseman, and they're hard to come by, and you get, I don't even want to say a top line center, but even a second line center, a guy like Matt Duchene would slot in perfectly for this team. Imagine a top line with Duchene and Hall. The speed on that line would be uncomparable.
Yeah, they got to get somebody in free agency to help that team.
Or the draft.
Or the draft even. They got to get some piece to make that team a lot better.
Yeah, and I just think maybe also is we're going to talk later about teams like the Rangers, the Sabres. They have these young, exciting pieces where you see the pieces are there, but it seems like maybe they're not quite there for the Devils yet.
Yeah, exactly.
And that is all the time we have for now, but when we come back, we'll be traveling downstate to check in on the New York Rangers and the New York Islanders. You're watching Stuck in the Sin Bin here on WTOP 10.
We believe in patriotism. We believe in our country. For 100 years, veterans have been impacting our nation through the American Legion. Learn more at legion.org/webelieve.
It's back and better than ever. One student can win up to $25 in cash. All on Oswego's favorite game show, Spin to Win! Every Sunday night at 9, only on WTOP 10 TV.
Welcome back to Stuck in the Sin Bin. The New York Rangers had a bit of a fire sale at the trade deadline, but haven't been playing too bad the past few games. They've shown the fight to come back from deficits, but just aren't quite able to complete the comebacks. Mike, what have you seen from them?
I thought you were going to roast me like I roasted you last week.
I did put you on the watch for that, but
You did.
I decided to calm down for the last
He's on the
one.
hot seat.
Hot seat Mike.
Their last 8 games, 7 losses, but I have to say that 5 of those losses are overtime or shootout losses, and they've come back in every single one. So it's not like they're truly out of games all the time. So they're making the comebacks, but they're not 100%ing it.
And I think that kind of just goes to show that the fight and the compete level that they have is that they're not a very talented team. They're young and they don't have a lot of talent, but they'll get there. But the fact that they're able to fight, the fact that they're able to try to generate offense and kind of force overtime, you have to like the compete level from this team.
Yeah, they did against Tampa, and then they did the other night against
Edmonton.
Edmonton. But yeah, they were outplayed the entire game. So
Yeah, I mean, even in the highlights here, you'll see, like you said, Mike, there's been this. You mentioned it to me before the show. How much of a real impact has it been with this new coaching staff? Because it really seems like they're playing at a different level, even compared to last year.
So what I love about David Quinn is that he gives everybody on the team the same amount of leash, and he doesn't care how good of a player you are. You could be Connor McDavid level, or the Mika Zibanejad level, and if you start regressing or playing bad in 5 games, he's going to scratch you. And I love that move from him because nobody's safe, so everybody really wants to earn their ice time, and he did the other day with D'Angelo. Had a little bad practice and wasn't really taking everything seriously because he thought he was playing really good. He was scratched.
Yeah, I think that's so impressive from a rookie coach. You know, he spent all those years at BU. He's an established coach in the college ranks, but this is his first year coaching at the NHL level. And for him to have the confidence and to have the team's backing to say, you can do what you want, scratch our stars, do whatever you want. This is a rebuild. We want to do it right. That's just so important. The Rangers could have found their coach from a way that he's getting these guys to play, despite not being the most talented. This could be their coach for the next 10 years, like for a very long time. He's that talented, and going through a rebuild makes it so much easier to keep him.
One guy who's actually avoided being scratched recently is Ryan Strome, and he has 23 points in 50 games with the Rangers and 12 points in the last 15 games with the Rangers, and I'm really excited that he's on this team because he's only 25, I think, and he's surrounded by a bunch of young guys, and I think he's really helped their growth as well.
Yeah, you really got to love the core that the Rangers have.
Former Islander.
Former Islander there. And let's stay with the New York theme here and move on to the Islanders, where things have been slipping a bit of late. However, last game against the Blue Jackets, the Islanders got back on track. Matt, what did you see in that game that the Islanders maybe need to continue to stay on that track?
It was a vintage Islanders game in the sense that they got outshot 31-20.
Of course.
They won the game on a shutout because some really strong team defense, but they did get, it was closer in terms of high danger scoring chances. They still were outchanced by a little bit, and this is a stepping stone for this team. I think that in the next couple games you're facing Montreal. That's a big test. You got to beat Montreal, a team that's fighting for a wild card spot. And right now, I think they've pretty much locked up a playoff spot. It hasn't been clinched, but it's very close. And to me, it's all about what can you do in the playoffs, and I need to see more scoring because right now, they just don't have, they've been anemic. Their offense has been putrid for the last month pretty much since mid-February, and I just haven't really seen much.
You know who I love on the Islanders? And one of my good friends here is a huge Islanders fan, so I always seem to watch their games. And Casey Cizikas is probably the most underrated player on that roster. 19 goals, 11 assists, a nice gritty third, fourth liner. Matt, how's he been?
I mean, he's got the talent to be a middle line center, and he's a guy that's on your fourth line. And I think this fourth line is so good in the sense that they do what they do so well. It's Matt Martin, Cizikas, and Clutterbuck. Clutterbuck has an underrated shot, and I seem to hate on him pretty much every time just because I don't like the way he plays. He doesn't deserve to be on a power play like he's been, but he plays pretty well. Martin, really good grinder and cycler. And then Cizikas has so much talent and has just really good playmaking abilities, and you've seen it really to a T here under Barry Trotz. And I think Barry Trotz really brings the most out of him.
Yeah, and I think one of the big questions, excuse my voice crack, going forward, is with this Islanders team is, like you said, can they score? Because right now they'd be matched up with a team like Pittsburgh in the playoffs. And I don't know, do you think they could pace with them?
No, not at all.
That's
the worst.
question.
That's the worst matchup for this team. I think I would much rather face a team like Carolina or a team like Washington because I think those are two teams that the Islanders can beat. Same with the Blue Jackets. So out of all the teams that are fighting in the Metropolitan, the team I want to face the least is Pittsburgh. And I think that's safe to say every team doesn't want to play Pittsburgh.
No, you don't want to play Pittsburgh because they've been there before. And you talk about Columbus here as you look on the highlights, and the Islanders really handled them. They handled them really well down low, especially on defense. And obviously Thomas Greiss had a great game in front of them. So this defense is going to see how far they can go, but they've got to get a little bit more offense and essentially a 1-0 game before the empty net.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see who the Islanders are going to play in the first round because if they get Columbus, they get that first round confidence. They could keep rolling with that.
Yeah, this is a team that they need to get. Their offense needs to get hot. If they can do that, then they're going to be a very good team. And you look at it here at the Coliseum. You're playing the first round at the Coliseum. The rest of them will be at the Barclays Center. But playing at the Coliseum for that first round is going to be huge for this team.
It's massive for them.
I mean, that was one of the biggest things I loved about that video is just seeing the crowd. I mean, they're just so excited. And if you bring that into the playoff atmosphere of the Coliseum.
The roof will blow off the Coliseum.
It's
going to be that insane.
They're going to have to redo it again.
Remember John Tavares' return? It's going to be worse than that.
Oh, my God.
That is all the time we have for Rangers and Islanders. But when we come back, which underrated NHL star made history last night? Find out after the break. You're watching Stuck in the Sin Bin on WTOP 10.
Are you thinking about buying medicine online? A search for online pharmacies yields more than 20 million results. But which ones can you trust? Medicines bought from unlicensed online pharmacies can be dangerous. You may get a fake drug, your condition may get worse, or you may experience a bad reaction. Don't put your health at risk. To learn how to find an online pharmacy that's safe and legal, visit fda.gov/BeSafeRx. A message from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration.
Here at WTOP, we pride ourselves on delivering you all the news you need to know from the day's events.
Whether it's happened on Capitol Hill or right here in Oswego,
We make sure you know all about it. We keep you up to date on all your favorite
Oswego and professional sports.
And our Storm Team 10 meteorologist will make sure that you know exactly what weather you're up against when you start your day.
Every Monday through Thursday night, make sure to tune in to Channel 10.2, because at WTOP, we don't just tell you the news.
We are
the news.
Welcome back to Stuck in the Sin Bin. With the playoff race at a fever pitch, we have several news stories to get to. Our first piece comes from Pittsburgh, where Evgeny Malkin recorded 2 assists last night in a 5-3 win over Washington. Those assists would mark the 1,000th career point for the Penguin star, and he was the 88th player in NHL history to do so. Guys, in an age full of young talent, how underrated of a career has Malkin had?
Underrated because he is probably the greatest second-line center of all time. Matt?
He is that good, but for me, if he wasn't playing second fiddle to Crosby, he could potentially be remembered as the best Russian player of all time. I think he's that good in an era and on this team, 3 cups in the last 10 years, whatever it may be. I think that the Penguins are that good, and Malkin makes him that much better.
Yeah, I think that Malkin will kind of always be in Crosby's shadow a little bit when it comes to talking about the entire last 10 years of Pittsburgh. I mean, he did stand out in the 09 playoffs, but I mean, he hasn't been on a different team his entire career, so you never know how he could have been and I think he could have been great.
But I think we all know how good he can be. You've seen the way he plays.
Exactly.
And teams, regardless, they're not saying we can only play Crosby on our top D pair against Crosby. Malkin's right up there, and I think that they balance off. It's such a mutual relationship where they're both kind of dominating.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, and in that same game, the great 8, Alexander Ovechkin, recorded his 1,200th career point. Guys, hot take time, is he the best goal scorer of all time?
Yeah, and speaking of great Russians, I think he is the greatest goal scorer of all time, no questions asked. You look at the era that he's played in, better goaltenders, bigger pads. He played during the dead puck era, and still throughout that, he's only 241 goals away from Gretzky's all-time record of 894. And you look at that, he's on pace to have 54. That sets him for 233 goals away from Gretzky's record. With that in mind, if he scores 47 goals, because I love my numbers, over the next 5 seasons, per season 47, he'll break the record. Not to mention, he could be the next Yager. He's in that good of a shape, or not in Yager shape, but he's a guy that could be playing until he's 40.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, he could 100% break Gretzky's goal record. There's no doubt about it. I mean, if he has 3 more 50-goal seasons, he's already at 800. So that's 3. He's 33, 34, I think. He could do it. He could do it.
Yeah, I guess my take isn't as hot, because I was going to say he's going to pass Gretzky, but I guess we're all saying it, so it's not as cool. But we will continue with the records theme, as Carey Price recorded his 315th win this week. That number is significant because Price now holds the Canadiens' record for wins. With a franchise this historic, where does Price line up among the greats?
Well, he's better than Patrick Waugh because he passed him. But, I mean, he's got a career 2.47 goals against average, career .918 save percentage. Those are pretty good numbers for the bad seasons that Montreal has had in the past.
Yeah, and you even look at him, some of his seasons have been great, and I think that you bring up a good point, Mike, in the sense that these bad seasons have really been impacted by them. And you look at the good season that Montreal has had, that's what? Carey Price's MVP season, his Vezina seasons. He's the reason a lot of times why the Canadiens go this far in the postseason. You look at it when PK Subban was still on the roster, he was the best offensive force they had as a defenseman. This team was built off of defense and good goaltending, and he's the rock because of that.
Yeah, I think Montreal, the team in front of him is playing really well, in addition to Carey Price playing well, because everybody thought they were going to be so bad. And I think Carey Price, was like, you know what, I'm going to prove the critics wrong. I'm going to have a great season, like regardless of what everybody's saying, and he's proving that he can still be a great goaltender on a bad team.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about not surrounding your stars. You got to even surround your goalies as well, and the Canadians really haven't done that. Price has carried them a lot, but to the surprise of everyone except for maybe our own Dylan McGlynn, the Arizona Coyotes now sit at 75 points and hold sole possession of the second wild card. With a tough Western Conference race ahead, will the Yotes hold on to that final wild card spot?
You know, I think they do, just based on default. You look at who's behind them. Minnesota, very average. They're just not a good team. You look at Colorado, they lost Gabriel Landeskog for the rest of the season, and he's had a career year. And then you look at Chicago sitting there 10th in the West, maybe, but their defense is not great. You know, like, I don't know. I don't trust them right now.
I mean, you got good players on your defense, but I don't think it's not a playoff team-ready defense. Hjalmarsson's good, but then you got like guys like Chychrun, Goligoski, and like I think Connaughton. Like you just got like players on that
They're
defense.
just all very meh.
It.
The entire team just feels very average.
It is meh.
Oh, they're gonna get destroyed in the first round. You're playing San Jose, Calgary, or Winnipeg. Those are all scary teams. I wouldn't want to face them.
Yeah, I have to give it to them though. They are playing more as a whole team, a whole unit, as opposed to one guy like Clayton Keller.
A lot of credit for Tocchet.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you said, Mike, I really like how they kind of play together as opposed to a team like the Wild, who's just a step under them. But speaking of the Western Conference playoff race, the St. Louis Blues currently sit at third place in the Central Division with 13 games remaining. However, they'll have to do at least some of that without their star player, Vladimir Tarasenko, who suffered a back injury that will sideline him for at least 10 days. How big of a loss is this for the Blues in such a tight race?
Yeah, Tarasenko had a bit of a rough start to the season. He wasn't really playing that well because St. Louis wasn't even that good. And once Jordan Binnington came in and started stealing the show there, I think Tarasenko truly came off that slump he had. And, I mean, he's got 28 goals, 30 assists. I think he's having a great season, and that injury really
I think people kind of forget that heading into the season, this was a playoff team.
Oh, yeah.
And now they're sitting 5 points out of 9th place. It's only 10 days. You're playing Ottawa, Pittsburgh, Buffalo, Edmonton, Detroit. You can win 3 of those games with or without Tarasenko. I think they'll be fine, though. And I think they're going to make some noise. Sneaky team in the playoffs.
Yeah, sneaky team.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. But, I mean, missing Vlad is going to be a little bit of a problem for them going forward. But like
Ryan
you
O'Reilly.
said, Ryan O'Reilly, the
know
former
him well.
Sabre, we don't want to talk about him on this show. But that does it for news this week. But when we come back, we'll be talking about the aforementioned Sabres' recent struggles in which Eastern Conference teams will make the playoffs. You're watching Stuck in the Sin Bin on WTOP 10.
Guys, I don't feel so good. Shouldn't have had that chili for lunch.
When you are in space, you can't run down to the store to buy parts. You have to improvise with what you have on your mission. Making is when there is something new that was not in existence at the beginning of the day. Okay. It's an incredible sense of accomplishment when you have made something. That's why I make. Now I want to hear why you make.
Share your own Why I Make story today. Visit whyimake.org.
Hello?
Josh, the stream's not working. We need you to fix it right now.
The stream's down? I'll be right there.
said it for these
Welcome back to Stuck in the Sin Bin. It's no secret the Buffalo Sabres have been struggling lately. They lost yet another game Tuesday night to the Stars. So guys, should Sabres fans view this season as a step forward or a lost season?
I don't know.
It's a roller coaster, you know. As Anchorman would say, it's a glass case of emotions when you're a Buffalo fan.
Yeah, it's true.
And
it's true.
you know, you lay the foundation. Just a year ago, this was a team that had the #1 overall pick. Now, at one point, they were fighting for a playoff spot.
Right.
So that has to be a win in its own right.
Yeah, I don't know why people are complaining so much, because we're talking about the worst team in the NHL last year that for a couple of minutes was looking like even possibly a top 5 NHL team, and obviously they bottomed out. They were on a power rankings for a couple of weeks, so that's technically top 5 in my eyes, according to Stuck in the Sin Bin. But they have the young pieces. They're going to get another decent draft pick. There's time. There's free agency, and I think people just need to calm down a little bit, pump the brakes.
Yeah, you mentioned last week that it's pretty much just Eichel, Skinner, Reinhart on that top line, and there's not much else to go with it on that team. I think there's a lot of growing and a lot of maturing that still needs to happen on the team. You know, there's a lot of young pieces, and you know that they're gonna get good. It's only just a matter of time until they get that. They have that experience, the winning experience from the season. Well, I think they'll take and grow with that.
Yeah, I mean, in that game against the Stars, one of the biggest problems I saw in analyzing the video from that, as we'll take a look here, is just a lot of traffic and some issues in front of the net. It was Allmark and net here this game, in which such a young defense, you see even Scandella there just looks out of position, and I think that's been a big problem for the Sabres this year is they're not clicking exactly on defense. A lot of it's coming power play. Right here, just a lot of traffic. Bogosian doesn't even know where he is right now, and just an easy goal past Allmark. You can't blame the goalies for this. It's a young defense.
Yeah, but Allmark's also got to be stronger on his post. Just look at the top left corner. Right. His shoulders got to be on.
But I mean, then you have Dahlin and Bogosian kind of just crowding the front, and the PK unit has been really abysmal lately, which is something that wasn't a struggle at the beginning of the year. So.
Yeah, I think Carter Hutton kind of started off a little bit better than than other people anticipated. Yeah. He hasn't really been that good. I mean, he's got like a 2.82 goals against average, .912 save percentage this season. I think those have regressed a lot since the start of the season.
Yeah, but you also look at this team and you forget they've had to face Toronto, Boston, and Tampa 4 times this year.
Right.
Those are 12 things that you can chalk up to losses, at least 10 of those.
Right, and with the playoff race heating up in the Eastern Conference, the wild card has seemingly become a 3 to 4 team race. The Hurricanes currently hold the first wild card with the Blue Jackets and Canadiens tied for second. The Flyers are also in the mix, trailing by 5 points. So guys, who's getting those final slots in the Eastern Conference?
I think Carolina is going to take that wild card spot. Sebastian Aho, Teuvo Teravainen, they got hot at the right time. The end of the season, they start off bad at the beginning of the season, but at the end of the season, that's the best time to get hot, and I think they're doing it right.
And I think right behind them's got to be Columbus. You look at this team, you didn't add all these pieces. You didn't add Duchesne or guys like Dzingel for nothing. I mean, this is a team, and you also look at it, according to the PowerRankingsGuru.com, they've got the weakest strength of schedule out of these 4 remaining with the 10th strongest, so it's really not that great. But you look at them, you can't add all these pieces and lose, and I think they're the best out of these 4 remaining teams.
Yeah, I think it's got to be those two, and the Canadians who are in third right now, I think kind of have fallen off the table. I mean, we kind of touched on that earlier, but if you're the Blue Jackets, you really have to make the playoffs this year, and you have to try to make a run because you acquire all these pieces at the deadline, you're losing so much after the season. I think they have to do something.
Yeah, and then just adding on to this Canadiens team, Max Domi regressing, Drouin regressing, and Thomas Tatar regressing. Those are all guys that were point per game by the All-Star break.
Yeah, the Columbus is scoreless in their last 3 games, so they got to fix that with Panarin and Duchesne on the team, and the amount of skill they have, they should not be shut out in their past 3 games. They need to fix that instantly.
Yeah, and then just to give some love to the Flyers, they're good. I think they got hot too late. That was the issue, and then Carter Hart, the savior of the team, goes down with an injury.
Yeah, give Carter Hart a couple more years. He'll be all right. But that is sadly the end of this week's episode of Stuck in the Sin Bin. Thank you all for joining us this week. From Michael McCormick and Matt Watling, I'm Luke Owens, and we will see you all back here next Wednesday, same time on WTOP 10.